How's it going, everyone? It's your boy Ozzy from the Nerdy Basement back again, and we are here covering Fantastic Fest 2025. Joining me today is writer director Majid Al Ansari. Majid, how are you?
Hey Ozzy, how you doing?
Good, I'm good. Welcome to the show. You're now officially in the basement. We're here with Fantastic Fest 2025. But before we dive into all of that, give us a quick introduction to you for those who are not familiar with your work or your background. Who are you, and what kind of creative magic do you make?
Yeah, so I'm Majid Ansari, filmmaker from Abu Dhabi, Dubai, from the UAE. I'm presenting this year in Fantastic, my second film, my second feature film. I did my first film, which was presented 10 years ago in Fantastic Fest. I look forward to being in Austin. And I'm leaving in 7 hours to the airport and look forward to,
Oh,
to
we're on
being back.
crunch time today. We're on crunch time.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, man, I appreciate you being on a strict schedule and taking some time out to speak to us today about the
Of
bio.
course.
But before we get into film, again, Fantastic Fest clearly has a special place in your heart. Like you just mentioned, this is your second film, your debut film premiered it 10 years ago. How does that feel to be back again, man? Like,
Great. Great. I mean, my first experience was magical. I mean, to be surrounded with people that love the genre, that love the horror and are passionate about what we do is incredible. I mean, I couldn't ask for more. So being back there, I'm really looking forward to it.
no, absolutely. We've covered Fantastic Fest a few times throughout the years that we've been doing this, and it's always been a great experience, a great lineup of films. So once I saw that this trailer and I saw this movie, got some info, and I was like, yeah, no, I definitely want to dive into this one and see what it's about and get some more insight because I'm a huge fan of the creative process behind the scenes. So that's something that really draws me into the movie industry and wanted to do what we do here at the Nerdy Basement, other than the nerd content that we cover for the most part. But I want to dive into the research process of the Vile, which involved a lot of in-depth interviews with women and their perspectives on polygamy, which is one of the many themes that are hit in this movie. How did that process unfold for you, and what did you ultimately take away from all of those testimonials?
Yeah, no, I think well, the subject matter is I grew up with the subject matter, right? I grew up with polygamy. I'm from it was practiced way more than it is today, but from my grandfather days, my father days, so it was in the neighborhood. You see it, and some of it is done the right way, where it's a consent, it's a couple that agree on it, but then there's the other way where it comes out of the blue. And this is where the vow comes in, and it really talks about that side of it, where there's no consent and there's no acceptance to it, and how that really breaks a home and breaks a family. Which you see here a lot. I mean, my first
Right.
experience when I first knew about polygamy, I didn't know what polygamy wasn't. And I was 8 years old. I remember I was in school and one of my best friends came to me. He's like, "Oh, I think my father hates me." And I'm like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because he married someone else." Maybe his father did it the right way, but it just
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't shake off the idea of why did he feel that way, and that was in
Mm-hmm.
my mind throughout. And especially when I became a filmmaker and a storyteller, that image was always in my head, and I knew I wanted to talk about the story, but it took me a long time to find the right angle for it. And it's been in my head for almost 12 years, or 10 years, 10 to 12 years, but it's until the end of 2020 that I found the key of how I want to approach
Mm-hmm.
it.
No, definitely. I'm glad that you hit that because that was one of my upcoming questions. Considering the themes that we hit in the film, gender inequality, the polygamy, the greed, the betrayal, and then the feeling of betrayal, like you mentioned with your friend, and then the trauma that comes with it, and that sense of autonomy for women. Why did you feel? How did you did it click for you that a psychological thriller was the right vehicle to tell this story?
It was a conversation I was having with my mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was like, and we are talking about polygamy and our stance on it,
Got it.
our thoughts on it, and she's like, and she threw at me this word, this sentence, and it just like it's got stuck in my head. And she was like, it could be. It's not necessarily the husband's fault or the wife's fault, the first wife's fault. I'm pretty sure
Hmm.
the second wife did black magic, and that's her being truthful. Like that's she
Yeah,
believes in.
yeah. That's
And I
interesting.
forgot,
Hmm.
and I forgot that aspect of it. I'm like, oh, there's a cultural aspect that we actually believe in this. And just
Hmm.
recently, my wife came back from the gym, and she's like, yo, I just overheard like a bunch of women just sitting in the corner talking about how they're gonna put spells on a man that's married, and we're sitting there, and she was scratching her head, and because how Dubai is fast and Abu Dhabi is fast, so you tend to forget
Right.
the different elements.
Hmm.
And I think that when I had that conversation with my mom, that unlocked the film for me. I'm like, okay, now what if this is true? All right, what if this is actually that does happen? Um,
Hmm.
and of course, and what helped is really go back to your first question. And sorry, I didn't answer, but being with women and interviewing women and sitting down with them that just it really helped beef it up, and it really helped give me the research I needed. And a lot of the conversation I had was integrated in the movie. I mean, there is a
Hmm.
moment where Amani, our hero, says to her sister, "Hey, if you were me, what would you do?" And her
Right.
sister would answer and say, well, did you see his face? Is he even worth it? He's ugly. I mean,
Hmm.
that was a conversation that we had in the room where there was an older woman and a younger woman, right? And it's two
Hmm.
different generations. And it was I found it so interesting. It's the old versus the new, right? It's
Hmm.
and of course now with the UAE with the we have that woman empowerment push, and you see a lot of women in high positions in government and private sectors. So there is that element to it that I wanted to put in,
Hmm.
and Amani is the conservative, the old school thinking, and her sister is the new age, the modern thinking. So
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I did notice that throughout the film, those contrast contrasting views given
yeah,
the age, like you just mentioned. More one is more modern, one is a lot more old school. That's something
yeah,
that we still see in a lot of cultures today. That sort of mentality that kind of
yeah,
clashes and creates a little friction depending on which side of the coin you're on. But
exactly.
there's also an empowering undercurrent in the film, though. It's not just those heavy themes. You show that womanhood isn't just being confined to motherhood or marriage. Was that something that you wanted to set out to explore in this film from the very
Yes,
beginning?
100%, and that came from a conversations I've been having. Is that I think ultimately for polygamy is it worth it? Is it worth losing yourself
Hmm.
and losing your identity for any
Right.
person, right? And sometimes and there was a very interesting with the character with Amani's journey. One of the things I wanted to do is, or one of the things that as we're developing, I'm like, she goes from a woman with that she thinks, and this is very predominant, and you hear it a lot when this scenario happens to households here, and females that have their husband do that to them, is that I'm not going to lose. I'm not gonna have the second woman come take everything that I built with my husband. I'm not because it okay, just put it in perspective that our culture is very different than it is in the West, where especially in my mom's generation, my grandfather's generation, where the woman would be sitting at home, be our housewives, and the men are the bread makers, right?
Hmm.
And that wasn't that long ago, and so that mentality really feeds into them saying, "Hey, no, I'm not going to lose this. I'm not going to lose this battle." And they look at it as a battle instead of. And that was an interesting conversation. I remember also having this conversation with my mom. I'm like, "Is it worth it? Is it worth you? If you take that route, you would sacrifice what's important, which is your family, which is your kids, right?" And there
Hmm.
is there is that element of how also the kids, and I've met and researched a lot of boys and girls that came from those households that got affected and affected deeply, and that changed their
Hmm.
trajectory of how they look at relationship in the future. So with Amani, she found that journey, and that's her empowerment. Is that she found her voice, she found herself in the end of the movie, and that's the journey that we're taking everyone. And it's really
Hmm.
hard in the culture that and the environment that we are in, and even like when she was sitting with her sister, and her sister was like, "Hey, why don't you just come and live here? Like screw him, like come here." It's like, no, what
Hmm.
would people say about me? That's
Yeah,
part of
yeah.
her fight, and being like accepting the culture. Like I'm a woman, like I
Hmm.
shouldn't be living by my house alone. I should be with my husband. That's the culture.
Yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, yeah, you did touch on a lot of societal influences and stuff like that, which aside from those real world social norms that you've been mentioning that are very prominent throughout the film, what were some of the other themes and personal experiences or artistic influences outside of what you just mentioned inspired the creation of this film?
For me, I'm a big fan of Adrian Lin films. I'm a big fan of for this particular film. Like definitely,
Mm-hmm.
Adrian Lin came out. I mean, I gave him a full scene, homage scene where she switches the line on and off. That came from Fatal Attraction. Fatal Attraction was
Yeah.
one of my influences for this film. I love Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is another inspiration. I love psychobilly films.
Mm-hmm.
And that for me was a very special movie. There are influences that came from that, and also, of course, the Korean cinema. One of the films I really looked at closely while making this film was one of my favorite films called The Wailing by Na Hong Jin, that came out almost 10 years ago, 9 years ago, and it just constantly keeps you on a balance of you don't know what is right and what is wrong, and you might say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is right, and then you end up becoming wrong, and you change your mind, or even before you turn out wrong, you just change your mind before it, and you're like, no, now I feel this way, and just keeps you on the fence of what's happening and how the plot is unfolding and so on. So those are definitely our inspiration for the Val, that I went to while making it. And of course, what I give a lot of credit to my cast. Badur, who plays our protagonist, she told me something like when I gave her the script, and she turned around, she's like, "Oh, it took me 5 times to read it," and I looked at her, I'm like, "Oh, so it was that bad?" I got nervous. I'm like, "Oh, so you think it's shit?" She's like, "No, no, 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 no. It's like it's too close to home, and that's why I wanted." And when she told
Mm-hmm.
me that, I knew she would be the right person for it.
Yeah.
Other than being a brilliant, brilliant actress, she channeled her history and how she saw the subject matter and put it into the film,
Mm-hmm.
and that was something very important for me, for the film to work and to feel realistic.
Definitely. The cast is amazing. All your leading cast members are amazing. They really elevate the film and really make it feel personal. I want to highlight something from Amani specifically as she spirals throughout the film. You know what I mean? Like the film creates this like suffocating, dreamlike tension that's both beautiful and also very unsettling. I gotta say that. Can you talk about that approach to directing those moments and how you use the cinematic tools at your disposal to kind of weave the horror and suspense into her emotional journey throughout the film?
Great question, Ozzy. I think the first thing that I did, I remember I had a draft where the horror sequences was written differently, like just for them to be like set pieces, right? And then I found that it didn't start meshing with her journey. So one thing we did was um, one rule I gave in the beginning is that everything that happens with the horror should be channeled first through Amani. Every aspect, she drives the horror and not the horror driving her. And the core message of the movie, or the core idea of the movie. Once we settled with that, then everything kind of settled in. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
the question is really good because one thing I realized going in, I was very confident, and just like I did my first film, I'm a kind of filmmaker. I do shot lists, I storyboard, I go in, I shoot it, knowing how I'm going to edit it. And I tried
Mm-hmm.
this with this movie, and it didn't work out. 6 months in, I'm sitting there pulling my hair out. I'm like, oh, I screwed up.
Gotcha.
I screwed up. But then what happened? I had a close director friend of mine that I sent the movie to. I'm like, hey, could you just watch it and just let me know what you think? And
Mhm,
he wrote me back and he's like, hey, listen, I think you're doing the opposite. You shouldn't. You're fine with it, and I could see that. What you should do
mhm,
is sacrifice it. Go back to 85 minutes. Go down like it was at 2 hours at that point. Like go
mhm,
down to an hour and a half, less than an hour and a half. Like sacrifice it. Like take everything else. Take everything out,
mhm,
except for the core story, and then build yourself back up. And that was the best advice I ever got for this movie. And what I've realized through that, when I did that process, is I was fighting and putting my agenda to the movie. And what I wanted, what should have happened was the movie should start speaking to me. And that's what happened at that moment. It started speaking to me and
mhm.
telling me this is the direction that this movie wants to be. And that
Right.
was that was a big aha moment for me, making this movie, from a technical perspective, and a creative perspective. It was a tough post-production process for me, just because we had to
Mhm,
figure out the essence of the movie again, refigure out and relook at it. and make sure that it's tight and make sure it's balanced. It's not all the drama and then it's not only all the horror. It's balanced between the two.
Oh, for sure. You have a very good balance of all that throughout the movie, and I'm glad you kind of got that feedback. It's good having that creative feedback from outside people rather than just kind of sticking to our guns sometimes. You know what I mean? Because that we can kind of shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes when we stick to our own guns. You know what I mean? So
A
I'm
hundred
glad you were
percent.
able to figure that out.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Majid, that is my last question for today. I really want to thank you and appreciate your time for coming
Thank
on the
you.
show and speaking to us about the bio. I want to continue wishing you all the success in the world in your creative journey. I hope we can talk again for another movie in the near future, maybe Fantastic Fest down the line. But again, I hope everything works out for you. You have the world premiere coming up, so I hope that's all exciting for you. We'll talk again soon.
For sure. Thanks, Ozzy. Appreciate it.
No problem.